We are used to electricity simply being there when we need it. If you buy a washing machine, you have it delivered, you plug it in, and you turn it on whenever you want to do your laundry. But behind the socket, a lot is happening to make sure everyone gets the energy they need. Clearly, this is easier at some times than at other times. It's easier when there's a lot of energy being generated by solar PV panels than when it's cold, dark, and windless. So the energy system could be run more efficiently if we not only try to match the supply to the demand, but the other way around as well. So when possible, use energy when it is readily available. In this clip, I explain what we mean with the concept of flexible energy demand, and I will show you different types of flexibility. Looking at the technical implementation of demand flexibility services, I will describe how we can classify them according to their control setup, their incentives, and their notice period. And finally, I will briefly introduce the important issue of measuring demand flexibility. So what exactly is flexible energy demand? Well, by that we mean the ability to change energy consumption patterns in such a way that this change benefits the energy system. You may also know this by the names of demand response or demand-side management. An obvious example of such flexibility is when you decide to charge your electric vehicle during off-peak hours instead of charging it immediately when you arrive home. But demand flexibility can also take more subtle forms. Take your clothes, for example. So when you've worn them, you've placed them into your laundry basket, and at some point you take your collected dirty laundry and wash everything. If you have more clothes or a larger laundry basket, you can wait longer between laundry washes, and that buys you more flexibility about when you use energy to do your laundry. So as a result, your laundry basket can be considered an effective storage unit, a battery for the energy system. Now, this example may seem a little contrived, but it illustrates that there are many non-technical aspects involved in demand flexibility. So from the perspective of the energy system, demand flexibility comes in a number of forms. And the simplest of these is a change in the amount of energy that you use. Usually, but not always, that means a reduction. So for example, you may be willing to compromise a little on your comfort temperature if the cost of heating or cooling is very high. The second type of flexibility is demand shifting in time. This happens when you move some of your activities to off-peak hours. And finally, it can sometimes be an option to switch to another energy source. When you have a local backup generator, you could switch over when the electricity supply from the grid is unavailable or too expensive. Now, recall that we defined flexible energy demand as changes in the demand patterns that benefit the energy system. This can only happen if we have a way to communicate these energy system preferences to the energy consumers. And in practice, this is done through a large variety of control mechanisms, but we can characterize these in the following three aspects. First, the control setup. That's the means by which users or their appliances decide to modify their demand. This can be achieved in a centralized manner, where a service provider directly controls the charging of your vehicle, for example. Or it can be done in a decentralized manner, where your vehicle autonomously aligns its charging patterns with low-cost periods. And second, there's a variety of incentives that can be used. Now, people often assume that incentives must be financial, but there is evidence that users are also willing to change their consumption patterns to help the environment or to be a better neighbor for other users of the system. And third, flexible demand systems can be distinguished by notice period. And by that I mean how much in advance users are informed that a change in their energy consumption would be desired. At one extreme, we have services with fixed schedules. So these can be time of use tariffs with fixed peak and off-peak hours. At the other end, we have real-time prices or real-time control signals. These can be used to communicate an urgent issue with the energy supply, such as a sudden outage of a large power generator. Together, these three aspects can be used to distinguish between different types of flexible demand services. So let us imagine that we've built this system. We've identified that we have flexibility in our energy demand, and we have used a control mechanism to activate the flexibility. Then how do we know we have succeeded in modifying a demand pattern? And more crucially, as some of these services rely on paying users to shift or modify energy consumption, how can we quantify the amount by which these users have changed their consumption patterns? Now, the problem we encounter is illustrated here. Let's assume that this graph shows the electrical power supplied in a system after we have made use of the tools we have available to modify this demand. How can we determine what the demand would have been if we hadn't? This is also known as the counterfactual. Well, the unsatisfying answer is that we can never know for sure what would have happened if we had not shifted demand, but we can do our best to estimate. For example, we can use historical data, detailed measurements from some customers, or even a carefully controlled trial setup. However we do it, the result of this estimation is called the baseline demand. In this example, by comparing the actual consumption and the baseline consumption, it appears that we've succeeded in reducing the variability of demand. The peaks have been shaved and the valleys have been filled. The result is a smoother consumption curve that is easier for the system to handle. So in this video, I've given you a brief introduction to the exciting field of flexible energy demand. After defining the concept as a change in consumption patterns that benefits the energy system, I've described three ways in which this can be implemented: by reducing or shifting energy consumption, or by switching to another energy source. Next, I've highlighted three characteristics that can be used to distinguish between control schemes for flexible demand: their centralized or decentralized control design, the incentives used, and the notice period for a change of incentives. And finally, I've explained how baselines are used to estimate the amount by which demand has actually been modified as a consequence of the scheme.